then you blew it.
That is the most absurd statement of the year.
Nice. Nice.
Oh, baby.
I'm in my zone, I'm feeling it.
Live from West St. Paul Studios, it's time for MinneZona Sports Live with DJ Matty C and Paul the Shield Vogt.
And this is MinneZona Sports Live. We are back, yes. Episode 180. Wow, 180 episodes MinneZona. The first episode of Season 5. We are on Season 5, people. It's a great thing. So anyway, without further ado, I'm your host, DJ Matty C, a.k.a. Matt Callahan, a.k.a. Callie, a.k.a. Matty C, etc. And all the way from Granite City Studios in St. Cloud, Minnesota, Paul Vogt, Shield. What is going on there, Shield?
You know, I thought last week was going to be a high enough bar to set for 2024 with obviously the Zonies and then obviously jumping into championship weekend coming up with, AFC, NFC. Now we've got a whole nother level to set up for Season 5 here, episode 180, and we're only trending upwards as well. We're taking last week, and now we're going above the bar as well with a couple of special guests joining us here tonight.
Well, I'm glad you mentioned that because, yes, we do have special guests tonight. You know, Voldy, we were talking about doing this for a long time, because, schedules haven't worked out or something's gone on, but we finally got it done. We welcome the guys from the victorious P.O.D, Jack Vickers and Tyler Herman. Oh, thanks, guys. It's about time. It's about freaking time. And, guys, we were talking to try to figure out how to get this done. We're hoping to get this done as soon as possible. But we got it done. It's a crossover episode. Welcome to the show. We appreciate it.
Thank you. Thank you for having us here. We appreciate it, too. We like to arrive fashionably late since we're a fantasy-focused show. So we're just going to wait until the fantasy season's over. So, happy to be here finally.
Finally. And, guys.
I appreciate you having us, fellas.
Yeah, absolutely. We're happy to have you guys. And, since we know that the, fantasy football season is technically somewhat over, but, there's still playoffs, things like that and whatnot. So we're going to get into that a little bit later. But tonight we're going to start off for the zoners that don't know, the zoners that don't know, the victorious P.O.D, your fantasy football podcast. Just tell the zoners a little bit about your show. What do you got?
Tyler, take it away.
The victorious P.O.D is the name of our long-standing league. So me and about, I think, 8 of us started it back middle of high school, which unfortunately was 15 years ago. So it was our 15th year of doing this. So back before fantasy football was pretty early in it. So it's been fun. We really just started the podcast probably within the last, I know, Jack, you and Walter started it probably 4 or 5 years ago now. It was really just kind of engagement. We wanted to keep it fun, keep it interesting. So we started it off as a way to keep the rest of the league engaged, put out some of our fantasy football knowledge because we all do it in more than one league. So is a great way to kind of keep us all together. And then it's kind of slowly morphed from there, continuing as Jack and I have added on other random things and other streaming things. And as betting has become more popular, we've done a lot of our DFS stuff and a lot of our betting stuff. So really it just started as a way to engage the league a whole lot more. And it's turned into now a fun episode we get to do every week and share with you guys and the rest of the crew as well. So it's been a blast.
I mean, I remember us hopping on original. Was it 2 years, 3 years ago, Jack, or something like that?
2 years, yeah.
That Viking trader Walters. I mean, I thought he was gonna get the absurd statement. The Packers win the NFC North. Is he running from us? What's going on? No,
I voted for him.
You voted for it. That's right. That's right. But you guys, granted, what you kind of talked about, Tyler. Just kind of what inspired you to, do this podcast and, things like that. I mean, fantasy football, I feel, has been big since, even when, me and Jack went to high school together. I mean, it was, pretty big then. And the content that you guys put out and, the things, the analysis that you give too is something that I think a lot of people are, very interested in, because this golden age of, media is crazy. I mean, you guys, putting out all these episodes, and obviously you've helped not only my fantasy team, but also Shields fantasy football team. So we appreciate that. Yeah. So let's just, let's just get right into it. What are your guys' thoughts on this past season with fantasy? Did you guys think that, things went pretty well from that standpoint? I feel like, in my opinion, that the quarterback position was very, very tough, because you had guys getting out left and right. But what are your thoughts, fantasy-wise on this past season?
Yeah, I'll jump in, because Tyler and I each kind of had a point to bring to the table, and that was my number one. Was just, this was the story of the quarterback injury. It was just kind of chaos this year. So for those of you that were following into your own draft leagues, the top 4 guys were pretty safe. A lot of people knew Mahomes, Hurts, Josh Allen were going to be some combo of the top 3, but then Lamar kind of snuck in there too. But beyond that, some crazy stats this year. Quarterbacks drafted 5 through 20 this year played in the fewest on average games in history of the league. So there was 186 games this year, averaged out to about 11 and a half games per quarterback. And that's fewer than even before they added a game this couple seasons ago. So back when they were 16, there still weren't as many starting quarterbacks and quarterbacks drafted early missing this much. So it's just, you talked about a few guys already, but Kirk-Cousins being out most of the year, Joe Burrow, Anthony-Richardson, the rookie, Rodgers was out week 1, like a lot of key guys that people expected not only to be able to rely on in drafts, but also all of their playmakers got affected too. So this was kind of the year to have to pivot, either finding a new quarterback or streaming the position. We do a little segment called Swimming Upstream, where it's just basically highlighting how you can play matchups each week with quarterbacks that nobody else wanted or nobody else took. So it was kind of fun to play that out in probably the most chaotic injury-wise season there was. So that was my big takeaway.
Tyler, what do you got?
Yeah, and just to put a nice little bow on that one, I thought it was pretty crazy. 16 of the 32 teams used multiple starting quarterbacks throughout the year, and there was a total of 54 different starting quarterbacks this year. So it was 100% one of the most chaotic QB injury seasons. So it was one over the last few years where it seemed like the top 3 to 4 really separated themselves and you really wanted them. And this year was not the way to do that. And so now it's already turned around to say next year, everybody's like, well, go back to waiting on a quarterback and draft some of your top receivers and QBs in the early rounds, because there's going to be a plethora of people healthy again. We'll see how that goes. And seeing like the Mahomes' fall out of the top 3 was pretty brutal. So for me, my takeaway was that there were so many usable rookies. We don't see that a lot in fantasy football. Usually when we look at rookie running backs, it's like 1 usually a year, and they finish somewhere in the top like 5 or 6. This year, we really had 3 that you could start every single week, being Bijan Robinson, Jahmyr Gibbs, and Devon Achane. And people think, oh, Bijan had a terrible year or was really down. It was really a usage thing. He still finished as running back 9. So he was still an automatic RB1. And everybody thinks, hey, Jahmyr Gibbs, he had an amazing season, right? He finished as running back 10. So it just goes to show really that Bijan was amazing. It just looked like his usage was way off, but he scored the touchdowns. He got you there. And Devon Achane, he finished as running back 24, which is still a top 2 running back. He missed 6 games. So you have 3 electric, dynamic playmakers that are going to be centerpieces for dynasty teams or redraft leagues forever. And then that's not even to mention the guys that are going to be even more important next year, like the Tajay Spearses of the world in Tennessee, now that Derrick Henry's likely on the move. So the running back depth for rookies was really, really good this year. And then going into receivers, the individuals that we already know about, obviously Jordan-Addisons of the world, Puka Nacua coming out of absolutely nowhere. Rashee Rice, the Kansas City Chiefs, finally figured out how to use a wide receiver. Zay Flowers, Tank Dell, Jaden Reed. So it was a year that a lot of rookies came out of nowhere that usually you get 1 or 2 a year. And this year we honestly probably had 3/4 of a dozen. It was pretty amazing.
Like a plethora of rookies that really did well. And, I think, Bijan, let's be honest. If Arthur Smith wasn't the coach, he'd probably get a lot more carries and things like that. But now that he's gone, maybe he'll get more.
Yeah,
But
we got a shot.
Yeah, you got a shot. And speaking of which, what would you guys? I mean, since we're talking about the rookies and things like that, what would you say? What player would you say was a pleasant surprise this season? I mean, what guys stood out to you and you thought, I had him projected at really far down, but all of a sudden he shoots right up there. So, what player was a pleasant surprise this season, guys?
Yeah, I'll hop back in. I guess we kind of did a segment in the first episode right before the season started for us where we picked our own my guys, but also some diamonds in the rough, which I think kind of fit this category well. Basically, a guy that was on the lower end. So obviously anyone can say that somebody in the top 2-3 rounds is projected to do well, but we were looking for that back half kind of guy. So somebody who for whatever reason is being drafted round 6, 7, 8 lower, that we think is being way undervalued. So one that I was kind of banging the drum for in the offseason and drafting pretty much everywhere I could was David Montgomery out of the Lions, running back there. Yeah. I think a lot of people, as soon as they saw the Lions take Jahmyr Gibbs as high as they did, they went, oh, well, that's it for Montgomery. He doesn't have a path anymore. But we saw it last year where it was kind of a tale of two cities, that they wanted to use Jamal Williams just at the goal line. He was leading the league in rushing touchdowns, and all of a sudden he leaves, and those rushing touchdowns are right there for a guy who, in my opinion, I talked about before the season, David Montgomery was just a better version of Jamal. He's that bruiser that can bang it up the middle for a few yards kind of thing. That's what you want. And now he's moving from the Chicago Bears for the first few years of his career to a top offensive line in the league, a team that we were projecting to score a lot on offense. So for context, Montgomery was being drafted in the late 7th round as running back 29 to 30, depending on your league format and everything, which that felt really low because we're talking flex player, maybe a bench player at best, who Jamal Williams, obviously we weren't saying the exact same was going to happen, but he exploded on the scene last year. So I was a big fan of Gibbs. Don't get me wrong. This wasn't to take on I don't think Gibbs is going to work, but I was very, very believing that Montgomery doesn't have to be efficient to do well. So he ended up coming in and doing incredibly. Obviously, he finished technically in points per game. He missed a few throughout, but in points per game, he finished as the running back 5 in standard leagues. So pretty incredible return on investment. I would say that was one that we don't get all of our picks right, but that was one that I was pretty proud we got right. So that one was a big one. And then as far as a quick guy that I didn't see coming, because I don't think anybody saw coming, Tyler talked about Nakua a little earlier, but his teammate Kyren Williams just out of nowhere exploded on the scene. He was the second highest points per game running back behind only McCaffrey, and especially when you needed him most in the playoffs, he was a running back 1 every matchup. So 2 guys that were good stuff.
Yeah, and talking about Kyren Williams right there, I did have McCaffrey this year, and good Lord, I mean, touchdowns on touchdowns on touchdowns. I loved it. And Williams, who knows what's going to happen next season? The Rams are bringing back a lot of, good talent too. So, Tyler, what do you got?
Yeah, for me, it was one that I was banging from early in the offseason. It was James Cook. As soon as they got rid of everybody in that backfield, Jack can attest, one of our first pre-mock drafts, he was at running back 35, 36. And unfortunately, he started to raise as we got closer. But I said, this is my guy. This is who I'm planting my flag in. And even when he got to draft time, he was going as running back 27, so somewhere in that 6th, 7th round. And I had made sure I had him on all of my teams. I knew that opportunity was going to be there. Josh Allen has always been really good at throwing those checkdowns to his running backs. He's the one who's going to vulture the goal line touchdowns, but that was never going to be James Cook's role anyway. So he was able to break a couple receiving touchdowns there, and he finished as RB10 on the year. So if you took any type of stab on him in the 6th, 7th round, you were plenty happy with the return. As far as somebody off the radar, mine was 100% the wide receiver in Puka Nacua. I don't think anybody expected that. He went essentially undrafted in near all leagues, or was a very last round pick. Maybe because somebody saw Cooper Kupp was out, he took a stab and was like, hey, somebody else has to catch passes here. And if you did, you were handsomely rewarded. I did it myself after week 1. I dropped legitimately my entire fab budget on Kyren Williams and Puka Nacua on my way to a championship for one of my leagues. So I was like, I'm taking the stab. I trust in the Rams. Let's do it. And it worked out really well for me.
Hey, whatever works. And you cashed in, and man, you nailed it. So, so we talk about, pleasant surprise and whatnot. But there's always a dud. There's always a dud that somebody you're expecting. And, again, if someone gets injured, Justin Jefferson, for instance, I mean, he got injured. He can't really do much about it. But,
still counts.
Still counts. True. That's true.
Dud is a dud.
Yeah.
But who would you guys say, and I'll start with you, Tyler, who would you say was the biggest dud in fantasy football this year?
Rodgers.
For me, it was For me, it was one that I feel like I've always tried to be in on, and I've just constantly gotten burned. I was in on Darren Waller with his trade to the Giants and just the absolute lack of receiving individuals in there. I was like, Daniel Jones is going to be better. There's not a single receiver that's going to get 90 targets, let alone 90 catches. Darren Waller is going to lead that team in receiving, and he's going to do awesome. Yeah, he finished as tight end 21. He finished as not a usable tight end in any depth of league. So I get he was injured a little bit, but even when he did play, 5 points, 3 points, 3 points, 6 points, 0.9 points. He was terrible. I was just completely wrong on that one.
Voldy, you just looking at your screen there, you did have Darren Waller, if I'm not mistaken.
I'm looking at my lineup that I had from the last week of the season to week 1, and yeah, it's not good. Not good. I had Rodgers, I had Nick Chubb, I had Darren Waller, I had all these guys, and I was ready for a run. I finished 7-7 in the final week of the season for 7th place. I put up like 170 points. I was balling the last week for 7th place, so I finished out the year strong at least. But yeah, it was not a good year. Not a good year overall. Yeah.
There's always next year. There's always next year. Just think about it like that. So, Jack, what do you got?
Yeah, this is one that you could have probably asked Tyler who my pick was for it, because I talked about him all the time. So I had been adamant the last couple of years that Hollywood Brown was going to be the ultimate value. He was my guy pick coming in. So for context, last year, weeks 1 through 6, he was the wide receiver 6 overall. And that was when Hop was serving his suspension for the side substances. We'll leave it at that. Then he got hurt, but then he came back again. And he was still doing well. So he was lights out without Hopkins. And then all of a sudden in the offseason, the Cardinals move off of Hopkins. And I go, hey, same exact situation. There's no competition. Yeah, Kyler Murray might be out for the start of the year, but if he comes back, like, this is going to be the only guy to throw to. He's had 100+ targets every single year, which we like to think in the fantasy community that's more of an indicator of talent, even if the results aren't there. And I thought, hey, there's nobody else to throw to. They're a bad team. They picked first overall for a reason. They're going to end up playing from behind a lot. And I was like, man, like, he doesn't have to be efficient. He's going to have so much volume. It's not going to matter. Right. I would like to say it was because he was missing games. He did deal with injuries a lot throughout the year, but he finished at like wide receiver 50. There just was nothing happening on the Cardinals offense except for James Conner at times. And then this little note, speaking of, rookie last year, but second-year player Trey McBride came in and just did all the things that Hollywood was supposed to do. So I was very, very wrong on Hollywood, and it showed because I took him in a lot of places because he was like a 7th, 8th round pick.
Yeah, well, with the quarterback situation too, I feel with Dobbs and I mean, Kyler comes in later, but like, Hollywood Brown, I just feel like he's been on teams where you don't have a quarterback that's going to get him the ball as much, and I think, you mentioned McBride. Hey, I had McBride in one of my leagues. Damn, that was good. It was like, that was one of my top pickups, I will say, with McBride helping out the tight end, because tight ends are so tough to find too. I don't know about you guys, but man, it is tough to find a good, solid tight end with that. So, and
just to wrap that up, I didn't even touch on rookie tight ends just from initially the Sam Laportas of the world, even Dalton Kincaid was usable. Sam Laporta finishes tight end 1. So that's above the Traviskelces. That's above the Mark Andrewses of the world. That's above the tjhockenssons of the world, which likely wouldn't have happened had he not gotten injured. But again, we're starting to see that tight end room expand in the NFL, in my opinion. So I think there's actually going to be a lot more usable names next year than we have. Usually it's been come away with one of the top 3, maybe 4 individuals. And honestly, I think there's going to be a true top like 8 to 10. You're going to add in the Luke Musgraves of the world. Michael Mayer is going to continue to develop. And the new ones coming in, Brock Bowers from Georgia, he's going to be drafted in probably the top 5. He is Kyle Pitts' freak athlete, but better. which is crazy to say. And Kyle Pitts' usage in the NFL has been ridiculous in a bad way. And I'm a Falcons fan at heart, so it's been brutal to watch for many years. But Brock Bowers is legitimately projected to be a higher draft pick and better than Kyle Pitts. So keep your eye on him. You're going to have some great tight ends to pick from next year.
I'm writing all this stuff down. I don't know about you, Voldy, but
we'll cover it all. We're excited. We're going to throw a dynasty spin here. We're dynasty
we can run the tape
guys.
back.
Yeah, we're on the tape. Exactly. That's why we got it on YouTube. And Zoners, feel free to throw in questions for these guys too. They're going to be here the whole show. So go ahead, throw in some fantasy football stuff if you want, or if it's just Minnesota stuff too. But since we are a Minnesota show, we got to talk about Vikings players fantasy football wise here. So who would you say, which Vikings player do you think had the strongest season fantasy wise, and then tell me the weakest? And I bet you any money I probably know who was the weakest in some of these categories. But I just kind of want your thoughts on that. So we'll start with Jack here first. Go ahead.
I'm much more excited to talk about the weakest, but I'll start with the positive. I think there were two clear ones, and I'm sure Tyler's going to take the other one, so I'll go with the more obvious coming in. But T.J. Hockenson, for me, I think we were just talking about how difficult it is to find the tight end position. He was, I think, if you look at it not just on fantasy points, but on statistical finishes this year, he had one of his best seasons of his career, even in covering the Detroit seasons too. So just on a per game basis, he led the league in target share as well. He had like 24% across the league, which makes sense with Justin Jefferson out a lot, but it's still crazy to see a tight end not named Traviskelce or Gronk in past years command that type of thing. So stepping up really well. I think he finished as tight end 2 behind Laporta, we just talked about, on a per game basis, but I think he would have had an even better season, obviously, had we not been missing Kirk for 2/3 of it, that they were kind of forming a pretty special connection. So enough about the positive stuff. The one that I was very proud on, Tyler can attest to, because we talked about it again in the offseason, our alternate one that we had on our like anti-my guys, the guys that we were out on. I was so out coming into the season on Alexandermattison, and I could not have been more disappointed and yet happy that it proved me correct. I had a whole paragraph I was tempted to read on my like pre-draft this is why you don't take him, just because it was baffling to me that like a good amount of the industry, if you guys go and look back at like August, September time, a good amount of the industry was so in on him. And so it's easy for us to say, hey, we picked my guy that was going to be a breakout if everybody else is saying it. But I felt like I was kind of going against the grain of like a lot of people saying, oh, Madison's going to be good. Like he was good in a fill-in role, and now Dalvin Cook's out of there and he's the guy. Oh, look out. And I was like, I just don't see it. Like he was the previous couple seasons before this one, he was like bottom 5 in efficiency, bottom 10 in burst. He was like 84th as far as a PFF receiving running back ranking. Like everything was pointing towards he doesn't break through the first line and he's not good in open space or as a receiver. So I'm like, what makes you think that's going to work out? So it didn't. For spoilers, he in 16 games this season, he had under a 4 yard per carry, only 700 total yards, and it was infamously where he didn't score a touchdown on the ground, which is pretty tough to do as a starting running back. Ty Chandler, we saw kind of come in towards the end, and I think I would believe in him more so going forward. Like I wouldn't be surprised if he is given more of the leash to start off over Madison next year, or likely that we bring in a day 2, day 3 type of rookie pick and see what they can do. But I'm very proud that Madison did exactly what we thought he would do.
Let me add, something, because he doesn't, like you said, he doesn't break through the first line, but his ball carrier vision is so bad. I mean, it is awful. If he doesn't get like a hole that's as big as a Mack truck or something like that, we're screwed. So I mean, it was so frustrating because he does this on a number of occasions. It's dating back to 2-3 years. I mean, I could go a whole show on the whole thing with Madison, like you were saying with your paragraph about, Alexandermattison. But, feed Ty Chandler. That was the only thing that they could have really done in the instance. And it's just, it was disappointing, to me too. So.
And that's not to even talk about his fumbling issues, which I won't get into
that
more,
too.
But...
Yeah. I think it was week 2 against the Eagles, and I think he had 2, if I'm not mistaken. And that set me over the edge. Like, he ain't it. Like, this is a bad idea. So I don't know, but Tyler, what do you think? I mean, do you have anything different? I mean, if you do have Mattison, please, I'd like to know another.
Double down and get him.
What do you got?
No, thankfully, I was also out on him, so I won't throw fuel on the fire. But on the good side, certainly the obvious one was Jordan You never know what's going to happen with these rookies, and it's so great to see the rookies step up and do so quickly as a number one, because usually they're not tasked with that. But he did incredibly well as soon as JJ went down. He commanded that target share. And if from a fantasy perspective, he was being drafted by probably the third, maybe fourth rookie wide receiver around the wide receiver 37 to 40 range. He finishes wide receiver 21, so he was usable, played all games. I think he played in every game, only had a couple duds. But he's one that you can rely on now going forward. As far as the weak side, mine was kind of the same thing. I said the running back room, but also honestly just the wide receiver room outside of JJ and Addison.
Yeah.
When JJ went down, there was nobody that really stepped up. KJ Osborne had a few of those moments, but just the way he played, he didn't do great at some of the contested catches. He had on some of the deep balls, but it never felt like he jumped in and took over that wide receiver 2 role to step in and help Addison. Right. So for me, it just kind of said we're really going to rely on wide receiver 1, wide receiver 2, our tight end, and hopefully we can figure it out with a quarterback and maybe bring Kirk back or whatever it is. But we're not going to go 3 deep at wide receiver. We're going to have our top 2 guys, and thankfully it's the youngest core that we have. We're going to pay JJ soon, in my opinion, and we'll be set up in that area for a long time. But outside of that, hopefully we can find a 3. But if not, let's start fixing our quarterback and our running back room.
Yeah, there's a lot to be said with the quarterback room and the running back room. Even defensively, well, we did have some injuries, things like that. But we'll get into that later on. But let's look in towards next season here, guys. Who do you foresee next year? Now, it doesn't have to be a Viking or anything like that, but who do you foresee next year having a breakout season that you guys are like, hey, watch out, this guy's going to go off next season? Tyler, what do you got? Go ahead.
Yeah, for me, off the top of my head, I'm going to go with an individual who I think is potentially going to get a change of scenery. So somebody who's kind of up and down, who seems to have the talent that really hasn't put together a full season beyond maybe 1 or 2. It's somebody who, if you've had him, he's incredibly frustrating, but I think with a change of scenery, he could do really good. Give me some Teehiggins. Give me somebody. Give me him from the Bengals. If he sticks with Cincinnati, a full season of Joe Burrow healthy. Granted, Jamar is always going to dominate that target share, but Teehiggins has shown he is an incredible 2. That's probably one of the best 1-2 punches in the NFL. But he's got some consistency issues. Sometimes falls off on the wayside. But if he goes somewhere else, he's honestly going to be an instant alpha 1. So I will not be surprised if the Bengals franchise tag him or keep him around. But if he goes somewhere new, if he goes to the Panthers or something like that and get Bryce Young an automatic, hey, this is my stud number 1, I can see him just absolutely blowing up.
And Bryce Young, I feel like needs that. I mean, granted, Thielen I thought did well for him too. But, at the same time, I think Carolina's a good fit there. I mean, adding more weapons for him. Jack, what do you got?
Yeah, there's a couple, I guess. One is more due to injury. I think we will, because of the other number of breakout guys and because so many quarterbacks got injured this past year, one that was a big guy, Tyler, was in on preseason. But I think we're going to have recency bias and maybe forget a little bit too much about Anthony Richardson in the fantasy football world. The dude went out early on, and we already saw the usage in the first handful of weeks that he was playing. Granted, we need to find a way to make him not get hurt and not take the hits versus going out of bounds constantly. But rushing quarterbacks are a very valued commodity, and I think people will maybe forget either on the back of the season-long injury or just we haven't seen him in so long. Look at these other guys and C.J. Stroud, and let's focus on him and overdraft him and maybe not think, okay, who's going to impact it more with their legs. Right. So Anthony Richardson's one that's kind of a little bit of a layup. And then another one I had on my list, which actually we mentioned earlier just briefly, but Tyjae Spears in Tennessee. I think Derrick Henry all but said he was done and saying goodbye to everybody, including the concession stand workers and the front ticket box office people and everybody. So he's gone and they don't really have another plan. Tyjae Spears was already outperforming him most weeks when he was getting action. I remember when the season started, it was, why is he getting more snaps and more carries than Derrick Henry? Is he hurt? What's going on? And it might just be that the young guy is more efficient and looking better. So I think he's somebody that probably won't rise up draft boards enough because we didn't truly see it, but you see how heavily they gave the volume to Derrick Henry. And I think if even 2/3 of that happens to Tyjae Spears and there's nobody else on the roster, he could be very valuable.
And having an offensive coordinator that is named Brian Callahan, who I have no idea if we have any relation or not. But, I mean, with him being an offensive mind, I feel like he's going to get him involved a lot. And obviously, Henry's made it known, hey, probably not going to be here, So, guys, I've taken so many mental notes for next season already. I feel like by the time we have you guys on again, we're going to be our teams are going to be stacked. And I can't wait after we win some championships and whatnot. But there's one thing I do want to bring up, just real quick, just your knee-jerk reaction before we get to a rapid fire with Shield. There's been reports, since we are a Minnesota show, there's been reports on our guy, kirkcousins, a.k.a. Kirko No Chill, reportedly wanting $45 million guaranteed, $90 million in general for 2 years. We have some thoughts about that, but I kind of want your guys' thoughts. And, we talk enough about kirkcousins here. We want your guys' opinion on this whole thing. So if you are the Minnesota Vikings, are you giving that money to Kirk, that amount, $45 million guaranteed? Jack, what do you got?
Oh, gosh. Putting the pressure on. This is the problem because I have been, Tyler can attest to this, I have been very stalwart in the Kirk Cousins side for his entire time he's been here, even when people have said, oh, he can't win the big games and he's not clutch and he this and that and this. I have been adamantly defending him, like with stats and with backing it up, not just blindly. But yeah, so this pains me to say, but when I saw that come out, I was like, I think if that's what he's looking for, he and I have very different definitions of what hometown discount means, because that does not sound like a discount to me. So
Right.
90 mil over 2 years, that's not even taking into consideration the fact that we still have, I believe, 2 years voided technically on his contract that we would still continue to pay. So it's essentially a 4-year deal that we're only paying him 2 years, but have more money tied up in it. I love Kirk, and I think he's good enough with the team around him to get the job done. I just don't think that team currently exists with us, and I think we have too many other holes where we're going to need to put that money elsewhere. So I have my own opinions on other routes I think we could go that would make more sense, but I think if that's what he's asking for, I just would unfortunately say that it's time to move on and we find a different plan, even if that means taking a step back for a couple of years.
I don't necessarily disagree with you on that, because to me, this all got blown up real quick, and then I want Tyler's thoughts here. But the one thing that got blown, this is one writer talking. Literally, how this started was one writer talking, and all of a sudden it got put out to every, social media, news out, and now, people are like, oh, that's what Kirk wants. It's like, well, do we even know if that's even legit, is my question too. And I think, we'll talk about it at another time and whatnot. So, Tyler, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, not too much additional, but I'm 100% in agreement. I don't know that we would do something like 45 million. I think with JJ's contract coming up and starting to be up for discussion now, and he's going to end up being the highest paid wide receiver in the NFL. So I don't think we allocate that type of money to Kirk when we've got essentially a high enough pick if we wanted to start the rookie quarterback contract over. If you're a first-round pick in the NFL, you get an automatic 4 years and then a 5th-year team option. So that's kind of what situation the Chicago Bears are in right now. They're like, Justin Fields, end of his 4th year, we can truly just hit the reset button and start that 5-year clock over and trade Justin Fields for potentially a first-rounder. We're kind of thinking the same thing. We either start with a stopgap quarterback and draft one and develop one here on a 5-year rookie deal, or we bring back Kirk on a 1 or 2 team-friendly deal, or find another stopgap veteran, in my opinion.
I like it. See, that's why we got you guys on the show tonight. So we'll probably talk about it at some other points, and me and Shield always have our opinions on it too. So Shield, rapid fire.
All right, so we get to this point of the program as well where I finally get to talk for a few minutes as well. We're going to start off here. Rapid fire, knee-jerk reactions here on this one. What has been the best and worst fantasy football punishment that you've ever inflicted upon someone or have seen on the old socials medias?
Oh,
whoever wants to start.
Tell you. Go ahead, Tyler.
Yeah, we haven't had too many fantasy football punishments with ours, but ours will be kind of a joint one, honestly, on this one, because we do essentially a hot wings challenge for our dynasty league. So whoever takes last place in the league goes to a Buffalo Wild Wings, and you run through the list from beginning to end on the B-Dubs spice list, all the way up through the Blazin' or whatever the hottest one is, as you're also answering questions and from the previous winner. So you're doing an interview while eating a whole bunch of spicy wings and bowing down to the champion. So that's a fun one.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
That is awesome.
We were pretty proud of that one. We thought it'd be a fun way to get the league a little bit more. So shout out to Nick, who's in our dynasty league. He took last year, and like a champ, he didn't just take a bite. He ate the entirety of every wing with the full sauce on him. So I mean, he set the bar really high for this year's punishment person, who is also Nick. So he's doing it again. But as far as creative ones and crazy ones, obviously we've seen like the super over the top that like none of us want to make our friends go through it or ourselves. But the one that I've always kind of campaigned and thought would be really fun was if you guys have seen the pancake Waffle House challenge or Taco Bell challenge, the 24-hour one.
Yes.
I think that's hilarious. And obviously most of us now as we get older don't necessarily have 24 hours or, however long it takes to just set aside to do that. But for those of you that don't know, having to go to a Waffle House and you got to be there for 24 straight hours, you can't leave. You can bring whatever you need with you, but every waffle you eat takes an hour off of that. So sit for 24 hours and feel good, eat 18 waffles and get out of there in 6 hours and feel miserable, whatever you want to do. But stuff like that I think is creative and fun. So
what has been the best and worst fantasy football team names that you've seen?
Oh man.
There's only one answer for best one. I'll say that right now.
The pressure's on. I don't know what that is now. My current dynasty one, I drafted Jackson Smith and Jigba this past year, and mine is I'm sorry, Smith Jackson. So I was proud of that. I'm sorry, Smith Jackson. I am for real.
Nice. That's a good one.
Yeah, we're very pun heavy in a lot of our leagues. So one of my favorite ones, and they actually pulled it out in the playoffs for the Rams. Mine's a gotta catch 'em all Pokemon.
That's a good one.
That's also good. I love it.
Yeah.
I love the good pun names. But the correct answer to that question was my fantasy football team. That's Keenum's Keepers. That is the right answer for the question. We'll let it slide for this go around. All right. So we know you guys are some fantasy football, we'll say gurus in this sense, but what has been the weirdest first round fantasy pick that you guys have seen, let's say in the last handful of years, that's just been like, really? You're going to go with that guy? First round pick? Interesting.
God, off the top of my head. We've had some homer picks where people are just taking Vikings no matter what kind of thing. I know there was a back in high school days when Ponder was first drafted. I know somebody took him in like the third round, so not quite the first, but they were like, he's the new guy, he's the answer. So,
woof.
Yeah.
Yeah, I haven't seen too many crazy ones. Thankfully, a lot of ours have been pretty straightforward. But for me, I've always been kind of beyond this year, it was the first time I tried it, but I've always been kind of the anti-tight end in the first. So when Gronk first started coming through, I never understood it. I was completely wrong on that. But I never understood the first round tight end. Give me the running back or the wide receiver. So thankfully, nothing too ridiculous. No quarterbacks going in the first rounds or anything like that. But yeah, I'm sure there's been some kickers and things like that go in some fun leagues.
Yeah, I can imagine with that. So we go from fantasy football drafting into real life drafting here as we go with the number one overall pick, the Chicago Bears. What are the Bears going to do with the number one pick?
What will they do or what should they do?
Let's see. What should the Bears do with the number one overall?
Okay. Tyler, you can go if you want first. I have my own thoughts.
Sure. Yeah. So for me, it's exactly what I said earlier. I think it's time to just hit the reset. The opposition to not and keeping Justin Fields and trading the pick is you're going to get a plethora of draft capital, just like they did last year. But you're saying, okay, you're essentially saying Justin Fields is our future, because you're going to have to turn around and pay him a contract now that you're at the tail end of his rookie deal. Or you trade Justin Fields and get a potentially late first, early second round pick, whatever that is. From what I've heard around the league is that he still would command a first round pick. Trade Justin Fields, get an additional first round pick, and hit that 5-year reset on a rookie year deal. So that's what I think they should do. That's what I ultimately think they will do, just because that long of a contract to be able to now build other pieces and use other money and whatnot around a cornerback, a cornerstone like a Caleb Williams or whoever they decide to go with, I think makes the most sense.
Yeah, I would mostly agree with the same thing. I think if you can get a first for Fields, I'm in on that, even if you believe that he can play better than he has been. What I don't believe will happen, but what I think would be the best case would be them trading a first for Fields and then moving back from the 101 still to a top 10 pick and loading up on more picks, similar to what they did with the Panthers last year. I think the Bears are far enough off currently where they're very clearly bottom of the division at the moment, and they've got a lot more holes than most teams, where take whoever you want at the 101. I think most times when people take a quarterback, they're taking the first pick for a reason. So I don't think whoever comes in is going to fix that. And I think the Bears can use as many different capital pieces as they can.
Final question as well with rapid fire. What should the Vikings do with the number 11 pick?
I'll go first. I really don't want to. I get the incentive of wanting to get the quarterback of the future. I really don't want to mortgage the future and go from pick 11 up to top 3, which is essentially what you're going to need to get, because we're talking the first 3 quarterbacks are going to go off the board 1, 2, 3 potentially. We're looking at like 2 to 3 first round pick or that level of draft capital to move even 8, 9 spots. That's not worth it to me. I think we can do that in other future years. I would love if we got some help on like the defensive line side, interior, ideally, like a defensive tackle would be great. I think offensive line is very deep in this draft, but it seems to be more tackle heavy, which currently I feel pretty good about our 2 tackles between O'Neal and Darisaw. So right. I don't know that fits our scheme versus just a best player available. So I'd love to see a D tackle or an edge rusher personally.
Yeah, I could see that, and I'm kind of the same way. If we don't go quarterback, and I don't know necessarily that we should either, I think we could do plenty fine with that veteran stopgap. But if we go cornerback again or something like that, I could see us going like the Alabama route and going like Kool-Aid McKinstry and having one of the probably top corners in the draft. So I think certainly something on the defensive side. But if you're going to go with the corner, can't ever go wrong with taking somebody from Alabama.
All right. That's true. I like it. Keep our eyes on for the draft coming up, I guess.
You're right. And we might have these guys on for the draft. Who knows? We might, have that going on for us. So great job, Rapid Fire Shield. Guys, this is the part of the program where we switch over to MinneZona stuff. Now, Tater Tot Hot Take, usually we do Minnesota stories, but since they're, since we've kind of, hit on a lot of that stuff, we will be talking about the Jorgepolanco trade, and then we're going to talk a little bit about the AFC and NFC championship games. We'll go into ARA with some stories and then Shield shoutouts. So, and again, for the zoners, throw in your questions for these guys. We can stop and talk fantasy for a little bit too, because that's why we brought these guys on, because they're gurus, like we were saying, and they'll answer your questions. So feel free to throw it in the chat, and we're happy to do that. So anyway, Voldy, I think it's time for some Tater Tot Hot Take.
Fresh out of the oven, it's Tater Tot Hot Take.
All right, like we say, it is time for some Tater Tot Hot Take. And tonight, gentlemen, we have a big, it's pretty big for our Minnesota Twins. They get rid of, I think he's with the Twins for 9-10 seasons, Voldy, if I'm not mistaken, with Jorgepolanco. He was traded for pretty much 4 minor league players. This is the Twins' way of trading guys, right? So, Voldy, I've seen your socials media's posts and whatnot, and obviously you have an opinion on this, and I cannot wait to hear what you have. Voldy, what are your thoughts on this trade? Go.
If we go back to the trade last year for a rise for obviously Lopez and the farm as well for the Marlins, that worked out. I feel like that was a pretty even trade on all sides. This one right now, face value, what the hell are the Twins doing right now? Because now we trade our second baseman yet again for a bunch of scrubs and nobodies at the same time. And yes, people really like to get into the meat and potatoes of how the farm system for the Mariners has some draft, has some great prospects coming through as well. Look, I'm a here and now guy. What have you done for me lately? And I'm saying Jorge Polanco, yes, he's had some injuries as of late. He's a hell of a lot better than 3 minor league pitchers as well. And then, somebody else, I can't even remember all the trade, all the acquisitions that took place as well. So you get one guy for 4 guys. One guy is ready to go right now. I mean, the Mariners are definitely a team to reckon with out in that AL West right now. So they're definitely something worth competing to. I just don't understand the logic of it, because now you got at second base, you got Edouard Julien, and then potentially Brooks Lee as well. They're hot prospects for the Twins too. I am just more flabbergasted, and a lot of my social media posts were not so safe for work or family friendly like we try to do on this program as well. I don't get it. I really don't like this trade as it currently stands right now.
Well, here's what I'm going to add, and I obviously want your guys' takes here too, but let me add this. Damn those poll ads. Damn those poll ads. And the reason why I say that is because not only have we been absolutely bamboozled by these poll ads, every decision that the Twins have made, it has always been influenced by the poll ads not willing to spend money. Okay? Now this is technically what people are saying, and what I've been, hearing is that this is a cash dump for the Minnesota Twins, saying, well, we're just going to get rid of Polanco. Yeah, he was injured. Yeah, the last couple seasons weren't great, but he was very serviceable. I mean, don't get me wrong, he was very serviceable. Now, let's not forget that when the Twins have made these types of trades, and I don't know if you guys have, remember Denard Span, Ben Revere. They had 2 stud center fielders. They traded them to get, some good minor leaguers. And where did that get the Twins? Nowhere. Absolutely nowhere.
Right.
So this is why I'm very hesitant to say this is awful, things like that, because they might not. They do need, what do we say on this show, Voldy? Pitching. And it has paid off when they've, done. I mean, Lopez, great example. It worked out for both teams in that, sense. This Anthony DeScalafani, I think I said it right. Who knows? Justin Topa, I've heard it's pretty good. Gonzalez. Yeah. And Darren Bowen. I mean, there's some prospects that, we can maybe things could work out with these guys. I don't know. But Polanco, I feel like, was a consistent, good player for the Twins. But, I get why they were kind of like, well, we can, move on from it and things like that. This is going to go, well, this was a great, it's a great move, to this was an awful move influenced by those damn poll ads. So, anyway, that's just my thoughts on it, too. So, Jack or Tyler, what are your thoughts on the trade? What do you got?
Yeah, I'll jump in. So I'm definitely a baseball guy as much as I am a football guy too. So I totally get what you guys are saying, and I think that's the hardest thing I've continued to see with being a Twins fan is we always give up these established guys for these prospects. The thing that I'm okay with on this one is that we have traded from a position of depth at this time, in my opinion, for a little bit older individual. So like I said, we've got Eduardo Julien there at second base. Yeah. Royce Lewis can plug in there at second base as well. And getting somebody who is legitimately he's a top 100 prospect in Gabriel Gonzalez. So number 79, I think he was on the list. He's a corner outfielder. So we don't really have that established. We thought about getting rid of Max Kepler in the offseason as well. And so, like you said, it kind of allows us to dump some of that cash that came with it. And on top of that, Anthony Esclafani, came over, and Seattle's paying most of his salary as well. So we're getting some of that additional pitching help without taking on a lot of the additional salary and adding a bullpen arm. So I understood it from a baseball perspective. It's honestly going to 100% come down, obviously, to what Gabriel Gonzalez does and if he's a usable corner outfielder for us in the next 2 to 3 years.
I can't argue with that. I'm not going to lie. I mean, the fact is, too, and I'm going to quick add this in here, but I feel like whenever they make these types of decisions, it's always cash dump. We need and then let's not forget the TV deal that they still have to nail down, with the Bally thing and that whole ordeal. But let's not forget, the poll ads are on the Forbes list, for goodness sake. Why can't they shell out some money to, have them, be better too? So I feel like there's a lot of people that are like for the trade, not for the trade. And, I'm kind of at the point where it's like, let's just see if it works out. And if it works out, hey, all for it. They know what they're doing. But I feel like a lot of this is influenced by those damn poll ads. So anyway, Jack, what do you got?
Yeah, most of what Tyler said, I agree with for the most part. Gonzalez, I felt like was the key piece to get here. I read somewhere where of all sub 20-year-old prospects, he had the highest average out of anybody this past year, and he had the third lowest strikeout percentage. So talking about like needing those corner outfielders, I think that could be very interesting hitting wise. Esclafani coming over, he's just kind of like a fill-in stopgap. He's going to be a back-end rotation guy, but I think helpful as far as just kind of an innings eater goes, with us losing Sonny Gray and Kenta also. I think we just kind of it's a nice throw-in piece that I think will be beneficial, but not otherworldly making a difference. Obviously bummed to lose a guy like Polanco that is kind of becoming a fan favorite, but I think assuming we were going to lose him, like Tyler said, there have been reports for a while that we were going to move either him or Kepler, and apparently reports that Seattle inquired about doing some kind of bigger deal with Kepler on top of it. So assuming we were going to move off of him, I like what we did at least get back. And then talking about the cash savings, we basically got in the salary changeover, we have about $5 million. So I think for me, what will decide it, whether I'm more on Matt's side or Tyler's side, is what we do with that money. Like they've talked about maybe some like first base hitting help or some like righty hitting. So I think if we go out and actually say, hey, you know what, we got this chunk of cash, let's put it towards somebody else and kind of effectively add that in as another piece in the trade, that's a win in my book. If we just say, cool, we saved the money and then do nothing with it, then I'm kind of more on the So.
Hey. It's
man, I gotta be more of a baseball guy because on this show, for lack of a better phrase, term of endearment here, these two buffoons are making me look like an idiot more times than not. Again, term of endearment, out of love, out of respect. Like
I've never been more complimented and insulted at the same time.
It was a backhanded compliment. You're welcome.
Yeah,
we'll take it. But yeah, I think it just depends on how everything pans out. I mean, it's just going to take time to see if these guys are going to, be it. But, history says, too, that things have not gone well, for the Twins in that respect. But I don't know. I just, this thing we're just going to have to give time. So, but appreciate the insight there, gentlemen. So let's move on to our the games of the weekend, and Voldy and I have been talking about this for a little bit now with the NFL playoffs going on. This AFC championship game, I was expecting more from the Baltimore Ravens. We picked the Baltimore Ravens here on this show. Don't let the jersey and hat fool you what Voldy's wearing, but we did pick the Ravens. Lamar completely fell flat on his face. I mean, and not just Lamar, Zay Flowers, for goodness sake, taunting, dropping the ball at the goal line, things like that. The Swifties remain victorious, gentlemen. They remain victorious.
Scripted, man.
Voldy, what are your thoughts on this game here with the Chiefs coming out victorious? And mind you, they didn't even score any points in the second half. The Chiefs, they didn't score any, zip. And the Ravens still found a way to lose. So, Voldy, what do you got?
Talk about resting on your laurels when it comes to that, too. I mean, Lamar did as much as he could, given what was going on. Obviously, they didn't run the ball all that much. Like, I think it was, 6 times the whole game to their running backs that they ran the football with. Dalvin not even used. Gus Edwards. The whole backfield was held obsolete in that one, when that was going to be one of the focal points. The strong point for them throughout the season to get to that point was their ability to run the football. Obviously, Lamar going to have to stretch the field a little bit more, but he had to take it all upon himself, unfortunately, because even with the play of the wide receivers, obviously with the taunting penalty from Zay Flowers, and then just that incredibly unfortunate punch out of that fumble right at the goal line. I mean, it was just it just wasn't going right at all. And it wasn't all on him. I will certainly say, as much as you want to say it was all on him, it was not his fault. I mean, the defense for the Ravens too. I mean, I didn't get to watch any of the game, so this is all completely made up. I'm sure Jack and Tyler will, take me to school on this one. I felt like they did what they had to when you didn't give up any points in the second half. Defense did its job when it could, obviously, but was too little too late when the offense couldn't respond there in that one. And again, NFL's rigged. It's all scripted. Swifties right into the Super Bowl.
I did have an argument with somebody about the whole, Taylor Swift thing a little bit, but we're not going to get into that. This is going to be.
We'll get into that later.
It's true. Actually, we might. So, one thing I'm going to add, and then I want your guys' thoughts here too. I can't necessarily put it all on Lamar, because I feel like he put them in position to tie the game up, and potentially even win. But he did make some boneheaded decisions, like throwing it into triple coverage because his is not even wide receiver. It was Isaiah Likely or whoever it was. Oh, come to me, I'm open. He's triple covered. There's 3 guys all on him. And again, the Ravens had they have one of the top offenses. They were coming off hot, one of the top defenses, and you lose. This is kind of reminiscent to what the Bills did the week before. This was a team that was able to beat the Chiefs on paper, but the Chiefs end up winning, and like Voldy said, it very well could be rigged, but it's all rigged. It's all rigged. It's all rigged. But again, the Ravens, in my opinion, really blew it, and this was their chance to get to the Super Bowl versus the Niners, another Super Bowl rematch that we haven't seen since 2012 or something like that. So, I think the Ravens absolutely blew it. The Chiefs back in the Super Bowl. So, guys. Gentlemen, what are your thoughts on the AFC Championship game? Let's start with Tyler. Go ahead.
Yeah, I'm with you. I didn't understand whatsoever the Ravens' game plan. I don't understand why you completely abandoned the run. Chiefs defense, it was, I think, bottom quarter in the NFL in rush defense allowed. I want to say they were 28th. Yeah. So I don't understand why you don't give the ball to Gus Edwards. I mean, a dozen times or more. You give it to him 6 times, and obviously run any of those RPOs, and Lamar's going to get open as well. If you watch the game, the weather was also terrible, so that doesn't exactly lean to a game where we should have Lamar passing heavy down the middle of the field. And it was a 17-10 game. So again, give credit to the Chiefs defense. They stepped up when they've played okay all year. This team is completely different from any previous Chief team that you think of. We're used to seeing high flying Chiefs score 35 plus points to win games. Their defense has stepped up. So I think that is where they've played incredibly well. I thought it was an amazing stat, and it's because they've had to. They are much more willing to grind out games, in my opinion. And the difference maker for this team is Isaiah Pacheco. Yes. He has been given the keys to this backfield. 24 carries. He's willing to get the gritty yards. Like, if you've never watched a Chiefs game, that man runs angry. He runs angry every time he touches the ball. 24 carries was a huge thing for them. Since 2018, when Mahomes took over as the starter, here's their points per game for the entire season for their offense. 35.3, 28.2, 29.2, 28.2, 29.2. This year, 21.8. They are so much more willing to grind out and let their defense do the work and just chew the clock instead of having to play 35 to 32 games. I think they're really leaning on that run game, and that makes it look completely different. And so then you see these 17 to 10 games and you're like, what is happening? Why shouldn't they have won? I agree. The Bills should have beat them last week. The Ravens should have beat them this week as well. But credit to their defense. They're keeping them in games. And when they have that lead, they're just chewing clock.
I agree. Before you get to Jack, I agree exactly with what you said with Pacheco. Every time I see that guy run, he's going to either run you over or he's going to juke you out of your shoes. And he has done a fantastic. I mean, give credit to Steve Spagnuolo and Andy Reid. I mean, Andy's shown why he's been in this league for so long and how good he is as a coach as well. And I mean, you hit the nail right on the head there, Tyler. I think their defense is much improved. L'Jarius Sneed, I think's had one of his best seasons as a corner. And Reed, I think Justin Reed, with their D-backs, so they're pretty set with their defense and their scheme. So, Jack, what do you got?
Too much else just to not repeat everything Tyler was saying. But I think if you would have told me on paper or even at the start of the season, like, hey, the Ravens are going to host the playoff game. They're going to be the number 1 seed. They're going to hold Patrick Mahomes and Andy Reid and Traviskelce to 17 points. If you can stop the Chiefs up to 17 points, you got to be able to score 18 plus.
Yes.
Like there's no excuse to that. So all the things echoing that we should have been running the ball more. Gus Edwards' first carry went for 15 yards, and then they said, let's not do that anymore. So that just doesn't make sense to me. I think a bigger thing was beyond the coaching. The coaching is really just like, Andy Reid is figuring things out with arguably their worst offensive season since Mahomes has led the team. I mean, they're playmakers. Kelce had a down year. Other than Rashee Rice, there's been no real wide receiver help, and they're still getting it done. So I credit that to Andy Reid. But I really thought that this was going to be the time that the Chiefs, they finally got to play on the road, and they had to play on the road against 2 of the other top AFC quarterbacks. I mean, you're really only missing Joe Burrow for the quarter or the foursome there, but he still went on the road and beat both of them. So it's a credit to them. It's really great to see. I just think that the other piece I would say for the Ravens is I think although they did end up activating him shortly before game time, it really showed the offense missing Mark Andrews at that point. They've gotten it done throughout the season without him, but he is Lamar's number 1 weapon. There's no, like, Zay Flowers had a great year. OBJ has been good in the past. Mark Andrews is the guy that the offense runs through beyond Lamar. So had he been healthy, I think they could have utilized him more. He got 2 targets in the game. So clearly it was a situation of let's get you in there and get you to play, but he wasn't full speed. So I think had they had him, that would have been a big difference maker, but it hurt without him. And especially when you're matching that up on paper versus the best tight end who showed he can still do it. It was a win for the Chiefs. So.
Yep, and they're back in there. The Swifties will be out in full force in Las Vegas, unfortunately. But again, another story for another time. Anyway, let's move on to the NFC championship game. Well, if you look at this, Jack, you got it right there. You got the Purdy jersey raring to go. But I'm sorry, since this is our division foe, the Lions are always going to lion. And I think Voldy tweeted this too, #SadKitty as well. They absolutely blew it. 24-7 lead. They go into halftime. You're thinking like, they're going to, they're dominating. Like they're kicking the 49ers ass right now. Like this is insane. But they completely lined it. They fumble. Dan Campbell, questionable decisions. We're going to get into that in a second. Voldy, your overall thoughts on those Lions blowing it against the Niners? What do you got?
Well, I will certainly say my take on the conclusion of the NFC Championship game did not win me any favors with any Lions fans because I got absolutely roasted on social medias by all these Lions fans that I happened to be. Yeah, it was not pretty as well. And look, I'll certainly say Dan Campbell is the model of a head coach you want to have as well. Just a guy who could probably, if he wanted to, he could strap him on right now and work you 7-on-7 right now and go to town because he looks like he's still got a little fight left in him. A couple of good snaps from that tight end spot. But here's the beauty of life right now with me. So I got done with work about 6 o'clock, got home at 6:30. The first play of the game that I saw was the bouncing helmet catch by Brandon Ayuk, and then saw the touchdown happen. Yeah. And then it was bat time, then bedtime for Case Paul James as well. And the next play that I see is the final kneel down of the game. So I missed the entire comeback of that contest. That's how life is going for me right now. But the whole time I'm sitting there in the dark trying to make sure my 2 soon to be 3-year-old is falling asleep. I'm just like, no, the Niners can come back. They totally can come back from this. They're down 24-7 at halftime or whatever. It's like, nah, they can come back. They can do that. Get the ball back. Defense going to make a couple of stops. No, they can do it. They can definitely do it. I will certainly say the way that defense really picked up in the second half and at least be able to get the ball back into the hands for Brock Purdy and just let, just pick and choose, slice and dice, death by a million cuts as well to get him down the field a little bit more was what they needed to do. And ultimately that's how it ended up happening there. And of course the questionable play call there on 4th down by, Dan Campbell, whether to kick it or whether to, punt it as well, spelt was the kiss of death there for them. But new coach, unfamiliar situation. Don't blame him at all for that there. Deer in the headlights there. And well, he ended up being roadkill in that one, but hey, bang, bang, Niner gang. Let's
go. Oh, that's funny. I'll be quick here because I know we got to get rolling with ARA. But you mentioned, I'm going to quick talk about this Dan Campbell decision. Now, I get that they've been doing this all year, and I think you guys, I've seen what the Lions are doing. They're going to go for it. They've been successful, don't get me wrong. But I will say, in this instance, if you are Dan Campbell, you have to take the points in this situation. And I think it was 4th and 4, 4th and 3, or whatever it was. If you take the points in that, now again, Badgley is not that great of a kicker too, so maybe that factored in a little bit too. Thinking, okay, do I trust him to make this kick here? Which it was, I think maybe 40, 50 or whatever it was. But I think that factored in, but in that decision, I think you just got to say, I know we've been doing this all year, but if we're going to have a chance, they had all 3 of their timeouts and the 2-minute warning. So let's not forget that. I think you take the points there. I think you say, okay, you know what? I'm going to concede on this one. Let's just take the points. Let's try and stop them. Because granted, their defense, besides their awful secondary, I will say, give them a chance. I mean, you never know, what could happen there. So I don't know. I feel like you should take the points in that instance. And the Lions really lined it up. Especially when you have that lead of 20. When you're beating down a Niners team like that and you can't finish, then you don't deserve to be in the Super Bowl. I'm sorry. That's just my opinion.
Sad kitty.
Sad kitty. And again, as Vikings fans here, guys, I ain't shedding any tears. I will say, I want the Vikings to get there before they get there.
Exactly. So, thank you.
So that's the main thing. But gentlemen, your thoughts on Dan Campbell, the game. Jack, go ahead.
Had the Lions made it to the Super Bowl, I believe that would have left us as the last NFC team to have made the Super Bowl. So I'm okay that we aren't left alone in that. It doesn't make me feel a lot better, but it's a little bit better. So yeah, I kind of agree with a lot of points you said. Obviously, that was the consensus in the media this past week. They were 45 and 48 yards, so I get that that's kind of right on the border of questionable. And then Badgley, like you talked about, people forget this past offseason he was cut in preseason or training camp by the Lions, and then they only brought him back when their other guy, Riley Patterson, was unable to be performing. So that's a factor. I get that, like, typically we would say that that's probably a locked-in type of situation for a kicker to make, but those are right there. And I think it was 4th and 2 and 4th and 3 on the 2 in question. So it's, believing in your offense and thinking they can get that to effectively put the game away, where a field goal would have just made it more likely. Getting that first down really kind of seems like it's going to ice it in either situation. So I do get it. I get the criticism on both ways, but I get the whole concept of let's play with what got us here, and that was their aggressive offensive scheme. Dan Campbell's not the kind of guy that's going to pull up for an easy shot. He's going to kind of go big or go home type of thing. So I'm not as much against it, I guess, as a lot of people had been in the media this past week. The one that, and I was watching this game, the one that questioned me more was, I believe it was towards the end of the game when they were down by 10 and everyone was talking, you either got to get the touchdown here and then stop them and get the field goal, or you got to get the field goal, kick it early and save time on the clock and blah, blah, blah. Had all three of their timeouts. They went to run it on third down, essentially guaranteeing that they had to go for the onside kick, when instead, had they passed it, even if they hadn't completed, clock would have stopped and they still could have used three timeouts after kicking the field goal. Running it on third down made sure you can't spike the ball to stop the clock. It's fourth down, and you're wasting a ton of time off the clock. So that, to me, was a weirder game management situation and a worse coaching call, whoever made that, Campbell or otherwise, than even going for it on the 2 fourth down. So that bothered me a lot more, because it basically dictated a very low percentage play in an onside kick versus stop them on 3 and out and maybe you have a chance to score. So
there you go. Tyler.
Yeah, no question. That was going to be my exact last point, is I certainly didn't understand that. It made no sense to run the ball there. I get they're on the 1 yard line. You've got David Montgomery, who's been great, but guess what? You got to get in then. There's no way. So it's just, it was a silly decision for me. And let's be real. We should really be roasting C.J. Gardner-Johnson. Waving bye to the fans in the middle of the second quarter.
Yes.
I was waiting for somebody to say it. I'm like, guys, come on. These are NFL football players. They're very good at the game. The game is not even close to over. It's early second quarter. So he deserves every piece of roasting that he's getting from here on out. So sad kitty indeed. I'm with you. Go 49ers.
Well, this is perfect, because we just had our, Zony Awards this past week. And I don't know, C.J. Gardner-Johnson could be up for Clown of 2024. Voldy, we
write it down.
Back and forth. Write it down.
Write it down right now.
Look, this dude was calling out Deebo Samuel, I think, not too long ago, too, saying he's just a running back, X, Y. It's just like, if you talk like that, make sure you back it up. And he doesn't do that. And now, you just jinxed it. And, I think it was, what was it? They scored, it was 20-7, if I'm not mistaken, Tyler, right? At that point, and he's waving goodbye. Like, what the hell are you thinking? This is going to end badly, especially because
such a noob.
You're the Lions. You're the Lions.
About 10 plays later, CMC stiff arms C.J. Gardner-Johnson into the ground.
Yes.
It's amazing.
See,
the only player that could have made a lot of people start to turn their back on the Lions, who were kind of the Cinderella team and people pulling for him, he just became very unlikable between the Hockenson injury and then the very next week taking out their tight end with the Rams. He took out Higbee in the same exact cheap shot hit. And then speaking of this game with Deebo on a interception return, nothing to do with the play. He turned like completely sideways, found Deebo, and went and hit right in his injured shoulder. Like, talk about a guy that you want to see fail. A lot of Lions fans, even people that we know that are Lions fans, and then even on Reddit, are saying, good riddance, I don't want him back next year anyway. So
right. Kirby Joseph, add him to that list too. What a clown. I mean, honestly, like, it just, even though it's not technically elite, with Hockenson, we're going back to that real quick, and especially with Higbee in the wild card game. I mean, even though technically it's a legal hit, you're trying to take somebody's knee out. I mean, you tore Hawkinson's ACL, and he didn't get surgery till a couple days ago. So, I mean, it's a dirty play. I hope they outlaw that. I mean, Jack, high school football, weren't we, taught to tackle the correct way, not use our helmet to take people's knees out? Like,
yeah, and that's a whole nother conversation we could go on, where people don't even try to wrap up anymore. You just throw your entire body weight at somebody, and you're going to bend their knee in a way that's not meant to be bent. So yeah, we could go for a whole show on that too. But that's what we got. That's Tater Tot Hot Take. Hopefully you guys enjoyed it as much as we did. We're probably going to, zoom through this ARA this week, but we want you guys to do this with us, because, again, this is one of the top segments, even though Tater Tot Hot Take is the top one, as we, say here on the show. But let's get it going with some absurd or approved.
It's time for everyone's favorite segment, Absurd or Approved.
All right, it is time for. I'm so used to just doing the two, but now that we have guests here, I got to get all of us in. So, anyway, let's get it going with some absurd or approved. So, Voldy, why don't you rattle them off for us, please?
Well, our first ARA story required a little bit of homework, at least to start off here as well. The Granite City Lumberjacks did release their documentary from last season, capturing an amazing comeback victory for the NA3HL Fraser Cup National Championship as well. An hour and a half dissection of the playoff run to the Fraser Cup National Championship game, and ultimately being down from 5-3 to win 6-5 with 9 seconds left in the third period over their vaunted West Division rival in the Alexandria Blizzard. That documentary came out on Monday. Link is in with this, of course, as well. We'll share it to all the zoners out there that haven't had the chance to do so as well and enjoy this this fine piece of cinematic work. Shout out to Durs Media for putting that all together. But face value, Matt, you've seen 2 minutes of it. I've watched the whole thing as well. Right. Is it absurd or approved that Breaking Ice now ranks in the top 3 of all time sports documentaries?
It very well could be. And, especially with what season they had this past year. And especially us knowing, shoot, one of them's your brother, obviously Jimbo, who's in there. And then we have our 2023 guest of the year, Eric Moser, Joe Clements. Yep. Again, this is I didn't expect this. I didn't even know about this until this got posted. So this was a great surprise, and obviously we had the special there with those guys. And even with me being 2 minutes in, it's got my stamp of approval. There's no ifs, ands, or buts about it. If it ranks top 3 all-time sports docs, it probably will. So, I could see this winning. If the Oscars come calling, you never know, right? You never know. You never know. So, Voldy, I assume that's probably top 3 or even 1. It's not 3, but it's probably 1 for you, right?
I would. Well, this is going to be a tough one. This is probably not going to win me a lot of favors in the locker room. But like Last Dance, The Last Dance, you can't top The Last Dance. But you could certainly try. Often, imitated, never duplicated with The Last Dance. You had 10 episodes of just a whirlwind of a run with the 90s Bulls there. But definitely a solid 2. Let's go 1A, 1B in this one. Interchangeable with obviously Breaking Ice and of course, The Last Dance is that one. Maybe save a little face for all those Lumberjacks fans out there as well. That's going to be my 2 cents on it. It has definitely got my stamp of approval.
So, guys, check out Granite City Lumberjacks. The documentary's hour 30 or something like that. So if you have time, gentlemen, and you don't have a lot going on, check it out. And it's uncensored, too, which is fantastic. I'm sure there's F-bombs.
You get F-bombs like crazy.
Yes. I love it. So you guys, make sure you guys check it out and let us know what you think if you get to it. So next one, Volde.
So coming off the heels of course, before they even kicked the football off in the AFC Championship game, there was a little bit of a little gamesmanship, if you will, between the Kansas City Chiefs and the Baltimore Ravens as well, in the warming up of said players as well, between the likes of Justin Tucker, the longtime kicker for the Baltimore Ravens, and the quarterbacks and receivers, that being for the Kansas City Chiefs. Now, usually the kickers and the specialists get kind of free range of the field a little bit because obviously they've got to kick from both ends, get a feel for the surface, the wind, and how that's all going to play as well. And then the visiting team is on the field as well, warming up. Well, apparently everybody got a little too close for comfort for many different reasons as well, which ultimately led to Traviskelce picking up the equipment of Justin Tucker as he is stretching and starting to warm up, and tossing it aside like he's a little, like middle school Pop Warner kid. Just, it's like, you're in my way. Here's your stuff. Go find it in the trash, basically. And that caused a little bit of, some discussion, some words on the field. But afterwards, Justin Tucker was just like, just a couple words here and there, kind of trying to downplay the whole situation and everything. But I had a major problem with all this. We'll get to my feelings on this whole situation. But is it absurd or approved that should have Traviskelce, but Mahomes is also in the mix too, a little too close for comfort. Traviskelce, should he have tossed Tucker's Quimmet like a degenerate, which is a big word for me as of late. I love the word degenerate. That's it. Is Traviskelce now degenerate for putting this kind of garbage like that on the field?
Well, I'm going to give it over to our guests here. Whoever wants to start with this one, go ahead. Go ahead, Jack.
I'll jump in. Sure. First, let me start off by saying the entire situation is absurd, regardless of what side you fall on. The whole thing that we're discussing that much about it is pretty ridiculous to me. But I think it was a little absurd on the Chiefs' part, not necessarily to have moved the equipment. By all means, do what you need to do, protect your quarterback, blah, blah, all that locker room talk. But to have gotten to the level of as upset about it as they did, I was kind of split until like the last day and a half. Tucker's post game, like you talked about, Matt, where he was pretty respectful about the whole thing. He was like, you know what, like, wasn't trying to do anything too bad. I thought it was more of a fun, lighthearted thing, and I guess They took it differently. I apologize for it being an issue, and I am completely fine letting it go, but it doesn't sound like they want to. The next day, Travis, I don't know if you guys heard, in the last 24 hours, kind of went off on Justin Tucker on him and his brother's New Heights podcast, where he was like, if you're going to be a D word, I will keep it PG, but if you're going to be a D, I promise I can be one bigger, and sorry if you had issues with what we took it to, and stay out of our way kind of thing. So whatever you want to feel either way, I think it's absurd to the extent that it seemed to get under Traviskelce's skin, because it didn't seem to need to be as big of a deal as it was. And I'll leave it there.
Tyler.
I got to take the approved side of this. Justin Tucker is the kicker. You're trying to get under the skin of the two best players on the other team. You're trying to get under the skin of the quarterback and the tight end, the two top connections on the other team in an AFC championship game. And you clearly did it. Like, that's the key to me. This is a whole gamesmanship thing. Justin Tucker, in the video, you can look him. He's behind there stretching and smirking. He's loving that they're throwing this, because he knows what he's doing is working. So it's just gamesmanship at the end of the day. And, I mean, if you're doing that quarterback to quarterback or whatever, a defense, you got a linebacker running at you. This is the kicker messing with your quarterback and your tight end, and it's working. So Justin Tucker, he gets all the credit and for doing this. And did Travis go overboard? Yes, but that's exactly what Justin Tucker wanted him to do. So I loved it.
Real quick, kind of side note, but Omni Entertainment, our guys, Rhino and Nick Dahlhoff, not to be Johnny Raincloud, but statistically speaking, anything released in January is often overlooked when it comes to the Oscars. So on our documentary thing, yeah, that's fair enough. So then the next year, how about that? Let's go with that. So it might be nominated for that. So we'll see what happens there. But real quick for me, man, this was a weird situation, and I kind of blame the Ravens a little bit, just because they were kind of poking the bear a little bit. I mean, for some of the before the festivities, but granted, Traviskelce was kind of getting during that game was getting in guys' faces and things like that. But I think the Ravens really provoked the Chiefs, thinking like, oh, you better get ready, we're going to kick your butt. And guess what? They end up losing, so who gives a rip? Either way. But I think it's interesting to me how that all went down. Justin Tucker seems like a fun, lighthearted guy. Don't get me wrong, and he does things like this to just kind of, but again, Mahomes and Kelce are just taking this to a whole nother level, in my opinion. So, Shield, what do you got?
Well, here's the problem that I have. And first, we need to address a couple of things here, or I should say undress, because I lost a lot of respect here for Traviskelce. And, not even really Mahomes, but you're telling me up on your mountaintop, way up high of being, king shit, basically, for Traviskelce, that you can't move 3 or 4 steps to the left and avoid somebody else trying to do their job as well. Like, yes, I understand the fact that you are doing your routine. Yes, everybody's got a routine, but so does Justin Tucker. His job at that point he was, I don't want to, bring it back down to, middle school and everything. I was here first, but ultimately him in that given situation should have the priority over the visiting team of the opposing offense as well. And again, him picking up the tee, the footballs in the helmet and chucking them 10 yards down the field, like, go on, boy, and get it. That's where I have the biggest problem out of this. And that is a very scumbag move of Traviskelce. I don't know if Traviskelce is going to see this at all, but it's a bit of a scumbag move. So I really lost a lot of respect for him on that, as opposed to, you guys can't move 10 feet to your left. I don't know what your guys is, if you're playing right from the hash marks basically and warming up that way, but you're telling me you can't move 10 feet to your left to respect each other, because ultimately it's a shared space. It's, obviously professionals trying to be the best at that time. And I know the whole situation, Justin Tucker, he's one of those guys that can definitely get under people's skin, but I don't really get the fact that you had to go that way. And basically, I'm sure they wouldn't have liked it if Tucker would have picked up their balls and started rolling them down the field, like, go on, boy, and get it. So I think it's completely absurd. Traviskelce is now a degenerate in my mind and a real scumbag for sure.
Let me add something real quick, because I know we gotta go through these, but especially when the spotlight is on you, because of this whole Taylor Swift thing, this whole thing is gone back to him, and for you to sit and act like you're, like you said, hot shit, and think that it's okay to just do that kind of stuff because I'm Traviskelce, everyone's talking about me. I agree. I'm kind of in the same boat as you, Shield, and he probably will never see this and everything like that. But a message to Traviskelce: just be happy with what you got right now, because you're getting all the attention, my friend, and for you to act all high and mighty, it'll come back to bite you. Just saying.
Karma.
So, yeah, we'll see what happens. Next one, Voldy.
So we stay with the NFL here on this one. Obviously, a team that is looking to make waves and ultimately move on from the previous regime with the New England Patriots and new head coach Jerod Mayo. But one of the big question marks that comes into, obviously, with the draft right around the corner, who is going to be the quarterback of the future? There have been plenty of reports coming out of New England talking about that. Maybe it's time to move on for Mac Jones, as the likelihood of not picking up that fifth-year option for Mac Jones is looking more and more likely for him. Numerous times throughout the season, started the contest, got benched for Bailey Zappi, and then ultimately was serving as the backup for Bailey Zappi towards the last few games of the season. Patriots have the number 3 overall pick in the upcoming draft as well. Do you think it's absurd or approved for the Patriots most likely not picking up that fifth-year option for Mac Jones?
Gentlemen, pass that off to you.
Patriots not picking up Mac Jones option in other news water is also wet. This did not surprise me in any way. I think any of us that have seen Mac Jones play recently, this is not a surprise. My question would be, they declined his fifth-year option. Can we decline his fourth-year option as well? Because at this point, Mac Jones is not the answer. I think we've seen all we need to see. Patriots fans have seen all they need to see. Yes, they have other problems, but man, they haven't looked as bad in recent memory. And this is as a person who is a big Tom Brady fan and followed the Patriots for a number of years, I can't remember them looking as bad as they have with Mac Jones. So that, combined with the fact that, like you said, they've got the 103, they're almost certainly taking a quarterback at this point, assuming Caleb Williams is gone, but whether that's Drake May or Jaden Daniels or whatever else, you're likely getting your quarterback of the future. You don't take a guy at 3 overall and not use him. So
right.
Do they not rush him in? And maybe they still have Mac Jones for this coming season, so they still got him for 1 year, but there's no reason to tie up more guaranteed money with him if you're going to move on to a top draft pick. So that's it.
Tyler?
Yeah, it's that simple. It's approved. They're 100% correct in declining his option. Take your QB at 3, build for the future. Total new regime. You got your new head coach in there and everybody in the office. So now you have a brand new coach. You can pick whatever quarterback you want. Nothing to do with Bill Belichick and any of his tutelage. So get them both on the same page, and now you got 5 years to figure out how to make it work and build around them.
I think that's the key too, and you guys, have talked about it here. Yep, stamp of approval for me, because we've seen all, like Jack said, we've seen all what we've needed to see of Mac Jones, and it's he had his chances, and he unfortunately blew it. So we'll see what happens with the rest of his career. So I don't know where he'll go, to be honest with you. So Shield, what do you got?
This is also coming at a time when Mac first came into the league that he was backing up Cam Newton in New England. So really couldn't get much worse for New England at that point as well, with him being the starting quarterback, and has really floundered the last couple of years, changing offensive coaches as well, from Josh McDaniels to Bill O'Brien and Lord knows who coming into the upcoming season as well. I'm not surprised by this move at all. It's, I would like to see that he ultimately gets like a career rebirth somewhere as well, similar to Geno Smith, Baker as well this past year with the Bucks too. And, hopefully it'll be a change of scenery that will do him a lot of good. But you know what? I'm not losing any sleep over it right now with them declining his option. So it's got my stamp of approval too.
Yeah. Sorry, Caitlin Toner. Well, actually, I think she's over him now, so we got that.
Nah, she's over it. Yeah.
Yeah.
We got that cleared up.
We got that cleared up. Last one, Voldy.
So a story we wanted to get to last week that just kind of, is very interesting, coming from a guy that doesn't really play all that much to begin with. But Anthony Rendon from the Los Angeles Angels complained about Major League Baseball being too long. 162 games for a guy that's played no more than 60 games since signing a 7-year, $245 million contract in 2019. So soon to be year 5 of that contract that will be taking the money and running for Anthony Rendon, complaining about that there's too many dang games, 162 games on 185 days or whatever it is. We got to shorten this bad boy up, to quote him directly from the story as well. Do you think it's absurd or prove Anthony Rendon talking about baseball being too long?
I'm going to throw it over to Tyler, since he knows his baseball pretty doggone well. What do you got?
Oh, man. This is absolutely absurd. You get to play a kid's game for fun. Don't get me wrong. Professional athletes put in so much work. But this is a guy who played incredibly well, and he got his 7-year, $245 million fully guaranteed contract, and he's like, "Oh yeah, that's right. This is boring." Him coming down, and some of his previous teammates have come out and is like, "This dude hates baseball. He doesn't like to play baseball.
Literally.
He played well enough to get paid, and now he's like, this is boring, and I don't really want to play anymore." So it's absolutely absurd. You get to come out and you're there for entertainment. Don't get me wrong, 162 games is grueling, but you get veteran rest days. Jack and I play fantasy baseball. We know how often people sit on Sundays and on the day before a travel day. So in a 162 game season, you're playing probably 120 games as is. And Anthony Rendon, with his injuries, like Shield said, he's played like 60. So you've already been injured. You've already got your fully guaranteed money, and now you're like, I'm just kind of bored. I don't want to play any money anymore. Thanks for my money, guys. Bye. See you later. It's terrible.
Vickers, what do you got?
Yeah, it's tough because like Voldy said, I think even if you agree with maybe the message, it's the messenger that I have the problem with, because he's a guy that doesn't play. So it's like, well, let's go look at Ohtani, who's out here trying to hit and pitch constantly, and his own injury issues, and he's out here playing, and you're a guy that's not even showing up for a third of the season, and you're talking about it. So I get it from a length standpoint, just because baseball is notorious for so many people being injured or having to take those rest days. I would be more in favor of finding a way to reconfigure the schedule to maybe not have as many games per week, maybe not necessarily shortening it, just let's take out this many, but just more strategic scheduling, where it's not 6 to sometimes 7 games in a week for some teams, where it just, that feels like a lot, and why you have to be sitting out constantly. So that combined with, it's March to October for a reason. We're talking 8 months, if you're including spring training, of straight baseball. That can feel like a lot for some people who are used to the NFL of September to essentially January, or even NBA and NHL aren't that long. So I get the context behind it, but I don't think it's a blanket statement of just, well, let's move it from 162 to 120 because that sounds better. Do it if you're going to do it. Be strategic with player safety and not as many games in a row and like allowing people to have those rest days without being forced to take them to miss a game. So I guess I'm absurd for the most part on Rendon being the one to say this.
Yeah.
Well, if you hate baseball, then why the hell did you play it? That's my question to the Rendon. I mean, seriously, like, I mean, if you don't like, oh, you're complaining about it. Yeah, I'm with you guys too. So, Shield, I probably already know what you think. So go ahead.
Probably like the Nikolai Jokic of baseball. It's like, I hate my job. I'm just here. I won a championship. I just want to go home. I want to go home and play with my horses and all that. But yeah, if this was Mike Trout saying it, Major League Baseball would take this 1,000% more serious as well.
Yeah.
The fact that it's Rendon, who has played like we've been saying, a handful of games since winning a World Series and just getting that big contract and just, not do anything other than that, it's completely absurd. I hate the fact that, a guy that has all this potential and had, obviously a breakout career to start with the Nationals, winning a World Series, and then taking his money and taking it out west too, is just not fully invested. I mean, he's, obviously going to be looked at by a lot of people and be like, then why are you here? If you hate baseball so much, then why are you here? Because,
Exactly.
There's, 100+ guys in the minors that would love to take your job. I know that my ultimate dream job, bullpen catcher for a Major League Baseball team. You get the league minimum, you get a uniform, get all the sick gear, get to sit in the bullpen, you get to sweat it out, get to freeze it out a couple of times, but it's good for the soul. You're a part of the team, but you don't have to go through, all the rigmarole of it. And as well, I think it's completely absurd. Anthony Rendon is trash. He is a trash for saying that baseball's too long. My feelings on that.
Hey, you're not wrong, Shield. You're not wrong. But for you to get to that, obviously where you want to go with the, minor league thing and whatnot, we have connections. We do have connections, and that person's probably going to be revealed here in very soon, I guess. Anyway, we'll go with that. But great job as always, Shield, ARA, and guys. Hopefully you enjoyed it as well. Next, what we got is Shield shoutouts. We end the show with Shield shouting out, specific people and whatnot of things going well and whatnot, and then we'll have one more thing for you guys. So I say we get it going with some Shield shoutouts.
Shield shoutouts.
All right, hey Shield, who is shouting out tonight?
Well, we do have to give a big Shield shout out to the victorious P.O.D. These two fine gentlemen for joining us here tonight. Doing an excellent job in their debut of the show. Of course, joining us here for the full length of the program as well, for Jack and for Tyler as well. Excellent job, gentlemen, as well. But we do have to give a shout out as well. Someone climbing up the ladder step by step.
Yes,
Coach
sir.
Bo, one of our former guests, Joel Bonnet, being named pitching coach for the New Hampshire Fisher Cats. That is the AA affiliate squad for the Toronto Blue Jays organization. Of course, winning a league title last year with the Vancouver Canadians. Now on that next rung of the step there, a little bit closer to the majors. Now, Coach Bo, the pitching coordinator, of course, pitching coach as well for the New Hampshire Fisher Cats. And I already put it out there as well. We got to get another bus update from him as well this coming season here with that squad out of New Hampshire. So hopefully maybe a little bit better quality with the video, or we'll probably be running the same as you're probably seeing here tonight. But that's going to do it for Shield shoutouts here this week.
You got to love it. And with that being said, too, I mean, you guys are literally the first guests to stay on for the full show. So we appreciate that. And it was a lot of fun. Absolutely a lot of fun with you guys. And especially when the fantasy football season starts up again. Man, I can't wait. And I'm sure you guys can't wait too, especially, around this time and whatnot. So you guys are absolutely 100% welcome anytime. And we'll probably have you on again because, hey, you're starting off strong for best guests of 2024. So, I mean, give yourselves a hand.
Big time.
So. But with that being said, gentlemen, with this show, we have a lot of, cool things. Voldy, can you help me out for a second? What we have?
Yeah.
With
What are we starting with? You tell me.
Let's do this one. Okay. Let's start off with the quarter zip. The quarter zip.
The pullovers?
The pullovers, quarter
buddy.
zip pullovers. These things are very comfortable. I'm wearing one right now. Gentlemen, if you're interested, we would be happy to send something off to you. And again, like we said, you don't always have to win with. Well, actually, excuse me, Jack did win 1 week this week, and he got the Percy Harvin jersey. So, hey, you never know what pops through. We have the quarter zips. We do have winter hats, even though the weather's been fantastic over here in Minnesota. Winter caps, fantastic as well. We got sweatpants too. We still have a good chunk of sweatpants with us, and we also have tumblers, water tumblers for you can bring it to work, put your coffee in there, things like that. So we're giving you guys some options. We'd be happy to send that off to you. And I believe Jack, you have the hat, right?
I do. I got the hat. I got a hoodie sweatshirt, and I got a nylon acrylic t-shirt. That's one of my go-to gym shirts. So got all the stuff.
Let's go. And then we have our hats as well. Camo, and here, I'll give you a little zoom in there. We got the camo, and then we got the American flag hat as well. If you just want to rep the American flag, hey, we got it for you as well. And then, like Jack said, we got the shirts, things like that for you guys. And then stickers. We have these. Yep, there's the shirt. Perfect. 5 out of 5 stars. No complaints on those bad boys whatsoever. Then the stickers, $2, $3 for those. So we will talk after. We'll maybe work out some deals here. So just to give you guys some options. So with that being said, we have to give thanks to National Fleet Graphic, Crown Rental, Tyler Knutson for the stickers. And as well, Jack knows this guy. W2 Performance, Will Rattel. Check his stuff out at www.w2performance.com. The dude's just racking up views, man. I mean, check it out. I don't know if you've seen it yet, Jack, but Rattel is doing Rattel things. I mean, remember, it was said that he could take on 10 bears, 10 lions, whatever it was. I don't even remember, but make sure you check out his stuff as well. And, of course, you got to check out the Victorious P.O.D. with Tyler and Jack and get updated on all your fantasy football needs. And, guys, where can they find you on the social medias?
Yeah, primarily we're going on YouTube, so we do recordings. Now we're switching into off gears a little bit in the off season, so we're doing more of a monthly thing since there's not the fantasy going on, but we do a little more deep diving on dynasty leagues for those of you that are in or familiar with those. So we'll be following the rookie draft since that's big, any off-season news, free agency trackers, stuff like that, monthly, and then back to weekly once we get the season starting up again. So YouTube is our go-to at the Victorious P.O.D.
Let's go. Mark your calendars, all that stuff for that. And then make sure you check out TLS Performance, our guy Troy Stoudemire Jr., and make sure you check out the Popcorn Bucket List. Nick Dahlhoff, Ryan Myberg, Omni Entertainment. Make sure you check those guys out as well. So with that being said, gentlemen, it was an absolute pleasure. You're more than welcome to come hop on the show. Hey, I'd be happy to hop on and talk some fantasy football on your show too. We did that a couple of years ago, didn't we, Shield? It was a couple of years ago.
Yeah, that was a while ago, but
that was a while ago. But we'd love to talk fantasy football with you guys as well. And just a quick update, the Wolves are up 77-67, third quarter. Make sure you check out the ending of that because, the Mavs aren't playing any of their starters, so there's that. But they should win.
Dub is still a dub.
Dub's still a dub. Dub's still a dub. They're playing well. Maybe we'll talk about that later on when these guys come back on. So, guys, thanks again. And as always, remember, keep in the zone.
Holla.
Thank you for watching MinneZona Sports Live. Join us Wednesdays at 7 p.m. for live show broadcast. And as Voldy likes to say, follow us on all the socials medias.